So where we left off was, discussing growth and why it was important. So what we said was we're dealing with this thing called GDP. GDP changes over time. That's growth. What is GDP? GDP is the output that we produce. And the way we can measure it is by looking at how much people are spending or how much people are earning. And then that gives us an indication of what was produced. But how do we actually produce it? That's what we mean here. And what we say is that production output is a function of three things: technology, capital, and labor. Okay? So again, for those mathsy people, it's just, we don't know what this function is necessarily. We just know that you take technology, you take capital, you take labor, you chuck them into a pot, and output comes out the other side, right? We don't necessarily know what it is. And the most important of these three things is this one here. Right? What did we said we were looking at GDP, unemployment, and inflation. Unemployment means people. So in this production function, this is people, labor. That's the thing that we care about. How many people are we employing? How many people are we getting into a process that enables them to make output? Okay? So L is the important part. Which means when we look at the production function, this is the production function, you'll see we've got a labor on the x-axis. What we're saying is, if we hold capital constant and we hold technology constant and we increase labor, we expect output to increase. Okay? As we hire more laborers, we expect to get more output. Why then does it curve? Why is it bowed? That's right, law of diminishing returns, right? The same reason that our PPF is bowed, we've got diminishing marginal returns. Right? As we add more laborers, each laborer adds slightly less to the final output product. What happens then is if, as this points out here, if we get more capital or we get more technology, that should make us more productive, which means the same number of laborers should be able to produce more, which we would then represent by a shift upwards in the curve. Is everyone with me on that? Yeah? I'm not getting a very positive kind of feedback here. Are you happy with that concept?
Yes.
Someone who's not happy, put their hand up and kind of explain to me what. No? Everyone happy? So I can move on. Yeah? Repeat it. Why is it shifting upwards? Okay? So remember, we've got these three factors in our production function. Right? The only one that we are looking at here is labor, which means we're assuming that the other two, technology A and capital K, are constant. Okay. So if with some level of technology, some level of capital, we have 50 laborers, let's say, and they produce 1,300 units of output, we would be at point A. You happy with that? If we now increase the technology available to those laborers, they should be able to produce more. If they are more productive, what we're saying is that these 50 laborers, instead of producing 1,300, should now be able to produce, say, 1,500. So we move to a point B. And the same would apply to any other point along this curve. 75 laborers previously would be produce this amount. With an increase in capital or technology, they are now able to produce this amount. So we have our curve shifting upwards. Yeah.
Assuming you have diminished marginal returns for capital
yes.
and technology as well, does that mean that the two curves would eventually come close, like the end, because the increase in the labor productivity?
I think it would be more a case of saying, as we increase for each unit of capital that we add to it, that shift would be less and less. So if you mean like as it's going upward, they get closer and closer, you know, like that. Yes. It's just saying that that movement upwards would slow down with that diminishing marginal return. Yeah?
What is capital accumulation?
Capital accumulation means adding capital over time. So if I have 100... Sorry?
Like money capital? Or
good question. Okay, so what in those readings it should already have mentioned something about the fact that when we're talking about capital, in the macro sense, we mean land, buildings, factory equipment, physical things, okay? Financial capital, which is like what you're talking about, money, right, is, we call it money. So if a firm has funds available to itself, what in accounting terms or finance terms might be called financial capital, right, is not what is referred to as capital in this sense. I mean, it's a very important distinction to make. So capital, land, buildings, equipment. Capital accumulation means if I have, say, 100 rands worth of that stuff today, and then tomorrow I've bought some more capital, so I have 120 rands worth of capital, then I've accumulated capital over time. That's capital accumulation.